We're talking about war atrocities being committed in Ukraine, what they mean, how prosecution of those atrocities will proceed. It's again a topic that I deal with as a television news anchor covering Ukraine a lot. But what we've got right now is a high-level conversation on that topic, one-to-one, involving the responsibility of Russia for the mass atrocities committed in Ukraine, and we've got just the right person to host that. A good friend of mine, a very accomplished moderator. You see him on world stages everywhere. My good friend, Ali Aslan.
Thank you so much, Terry, indeed, for this kind introduction. It's wonderful to see you up on stage, doing your masterful work as MC. And yes, this is indeed a very crucial, very timely discussion we're going to have here right now. I couldn't be more delighted to be joined when we talk about war crimes committed by Russia, to talk about the one person who is at the forefront of this fight. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Ukrainian Prosecutor General Andriy Kostin is here with us. Please give him a hand. Andriy Kostin, obviously the aim on your part, on the part of the international community, is to hold Russia accountable for its war crimes against Ukrainian people. Before we go into detail, perhaps you can give a very quick overview over what is the nature of Russian crimes committed and what sort of crimes are you actually investigating?
Thank you, Ali. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, before I start my introductory remarks, I would like to thank government of Poland and Polish people for their invaluable assistance and support from the very first day of Russian aggression. Coming back to a question, currently my office is investigating 3 types of international crimes: the crime of aggression, the war crimes, and the crime of genocide. Russia's unprovoked and unjustified invasion of my country is clear violation of the UN Charter's prohibition of the use of force against territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. This act requires adequate response, entailing Russia's state responsibility as well as individual criminal liability of its political and military leadership. We have already identified more than 600 suspects for the crime of aggression. As of now, we have around 37,000 registered incidents of war crimes, with death toll among civilian population amounting to 7,500, including 418 children. Number of wounded exceeds 10,000. And these numbers are incomplete, as we are unable to have a whole picture of the situation due to ongoing hostilities and lack of access to occupied territories of Ukraine. Since the very first day of this brutal war, we have witnessed Russia's deliberate targeting of civilian population and civilian objects in urban settings, along with intentional starvation of civilians in besieged cities. Undoubtedly, acts of Russian soldiers, such intentional killing of civilians or detainees, torture and mutilation, rape and other sexual violence, acts of terror and intimidation, forced displacement and pillage amount to war crimes. We all remember bombing of Mariupol maternity hospital and drama theater, shelling of Kramatorsk railway station, mass killings and torture in towns of Kyiv region, or the very recent missile attack in Zaporizhia, killing 25 civilians. Last night, city of Bila Tserkva has been attacked through kamikaze drones. As of now, we have identified more than 170 suspects and successfully convicted 10 war criminals. These illegal acts have nothing to do with the combatants' engagement in armed conflicts. This brings me to the crime of genocide. Since 24th of February, we have heard loud and clear how Kremlin's leadership incited Russian army to carry out de-Ukrainization process. Step by step, rhetoric became more aggressive, and the first signs of attacking Ukrainians as a group appeared. We all remember atrocities committed in Bucha and Irpin. With the recent liberation of occupied territories in eastern and southern parts of the country, we have been witnessing the manifest pattern of similar conduct. In Izum, more than 440 graves were found at a mass burial site in the woods at the edge of liberated city. While killing of large number of groups may be the most direct means of destroying a group, persecution can also be committed by other acts that does not have immediate result, such as practices of forced deportations and confinement to filtration camps practiced by Russian Federation. Deliberate policy of forced deportation of Ukrainian children and initiation of adoption processes in Russia is particularly alarming. We have already identified up to 7,000 children victims of this policy in course of the ongoing criminal proceedings, whereas potential number are tenfold, if not more. We all know that forcibly transferring children of one group to another group is a classical example of genocide.
Thank you so much for giving us this overview. And I want to pick up on some of the numbers that you have shared with us. You said you have so far 37,000 documented war crimes, but so far only 170 individuals have been charged as suspects. And if I understand, only about 25, 30 people have been indicted, 10 convicted if I'm not mistaken. But those are still relatively small numbers compared to the crimes and the numbers of documented war crimes we're looking at. Why is it so hard? So what are some of the main challenges that you're encountering here?
The main challenges in our investigations are, first of all, we have lack of access to occupied territories. And often with recapturing of the occupied regions, we might discover that certain piece of evidence is already distorted, or simply the witnesses are unavailable due to massive displacement, forcibly deported or fled the territory due to war. Some crimes are of a sensitive nature, for example, conflict-related sexual violence. It becomes extremely difficult to seek testimony from survivors. In general, coming forward and talking of the atrocities committed or horrors witnessed is quite traumatic for people. Therefore, we are being very cautious in our efforts and sensitive to the needs of victims and survivors. Coming back to these figures, we have two sources of registering of the incidents of war crimes. First of all, it's shelling and bombing of civil infrastructure. It could be apartments, it could be homes, it could be other civil infrastructure. So there is a fact, and we register it as a fact of war crime, as an incident of war crime. The others, we have the other source are reports of people. So people can claim that their property was destroyed due to attack of the aggressor. And we, of course, register such cases. So, for instance, if it's multi-story buildings and all of the flats have lost their windows, then many people then, at some time, that come and register that their property was damaged or their property was completely destroyed. And there is also one interesting situation, that it can happen that the same fact of war crimes committed, for instance, destroying of property, could be reported by different members of the same family, for instance, who fled and who report this in weeks or months after that. So that is why we are now, with our international partners, we are now preparing some IT solution to find this duplication and to reduce this number, so that we will be concentrated on specific facts.
So the overlapping of numbers then ought to be
Yes, we understand
reduced.
that this exists. Yeah.
It's interesting enough that you, if I understand correctly, you and President Zelensky, of course, you are calling for a special tribunal for the crime of aggression. You think that it is the best way to find injustice against Russia. This is not unprecedented, of course. You've had the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia back in the early 90s. Why do you think that such a special tribunal here for the crime of aggression is needed?
First of all, we all understand that crime of aggression was the first crime committed by Russian Federation, because the aggression was the first. We name it as the mother of all other war crimes. There would be no other war crimes if aggression was not committed. Due to legal constraints, the crime of aggression could not be prosecuted and tried by the International Criminal Court. This is understandable for everyone. Then, everyone understands that act of aggression was committed, and the all civilized world supported this on the level of General Assembly already, and also supported this fact on the level of Council of Europe or OSCE. So we have this fact already. This is no doubt that the crime of aggression was committed. Then we all understand that this aggression is another attempt of Putin's regime to ruin the basics of international law. So if this crime was committed, we need it to be punished. And the only legal way to punish this crime is to have a special tribunal. Of course, the easiest legal way to make it was via the resolution of the Security Council of UN. But we all understand that at least one permanent member of the Security Council will impose veto on this decision. That's why we're seeking the support of General Assembly, because every Ukrainian, it's not only about the political position of the president and political leadership of Ukraine. Every Ukrainian wants this tribunal. I will mention historically, our people gave name to this tribunal, and the first name for tribunal was Kharkiv Tribunal. When at the end of February, Kharkiv multi-storied buildings where people live, apartment buildings, were destroyed by Russian missiles, which they deliberately target these buildings. Then, if you remember, the people changed the name into Bucha Tribunal, Mariupol Tribunal. So this is about Ukrainian nation. They want this to be happen.
They want this to happen, and indeed, I see a rationale for wanting a special tribunal here, a new institution, as a matter of fact, that, as you say, would have to be approved by the UN General Assembly. There are some scholars out there, well, the ICC, the International Criminal Court, could also go after Russia for war crimes. As a matter of fact, the ICC has opened investigations into war crimes in Ukraine. So where's the distinction here? You want to, the ICC is running its course, but the special tribunal has to act in addition, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. These two mechanisms are complementary. So Ukrainians and we all together are talking about full accountability of the aggressor. And if the aggressor should be accountable for war crimes, for crimes against humanity, and for crime of genocide, then the ICC is the best forum for this. For these cases. We work in very close relations with the Office of Prosecutor Karim Khan. I actually met with him yesterday. We have another round of meeting, and we have spoken at the Night of Law event in Paris together. And our understanding is that these two mechanisms are complementary. So for war crimes, once again, for crime of genocide and crimes against humanity, the ICC is the best solution, because it's in place already. It's international judiciary independent institution. But for the crime of aggression, which was the mother and is the mother of all these war crimes, we need tribunal.
Interestingly enough, the United States, which obviously is very much at the forefront of supporting Ukraine on many levels. It's my understanding the Department of Justice has so far not publicly endorsed your idea of such a tribunal. How are you going to convince them? How are you talking to your American counterparts, obviously on a regular basis? How to turn this around?
You know, first of all, is absolutely open and honest communication. Second, the legal argument I have already mentioned, that otherwise no one would be punished for the crime of aggression if there will be no international credible instrument. For this instrument to be credible, we need wide support and, of course, support of nations like United States, UK, countries of EU. We need this support. In this case, the result, the outcome of this tribunal will be trusted. I think that coming back to the beginning of this dialogue, we are moving ahead, we are moving forward, and we are close, I think, to support of US on the level at the moment of the resolution of General Assembly. Then we will go ahead.
Obviously, you would like to see, ideally, President Putin, the Russian leadership being held accountable for those war crimes. There's some legal scholars out there who are rather skeptical about a tribunal as such as the one you described, being able to go after Putin and senior Russian officials. How do you respond to that?
You know, I have responded to this question yesterday. I will just repeat. There is no competition between the ICC and the special tribunal in which dock Putin and his team will be held. So it's important for Ukrainians to feel, to know, and to be sure that Putin and his team will be accountable for what they did. And there is no problem to make them accountable on the level of the ICC, and there is no problem to make him accountable on the level of tribunal, because in any case, the creation of a special tribunal would be based on the international treaty. The practical issue, how to capture and to deliver him and his team to the ICC or the tribunal, this is not a concern which needs to stop our activity. We are optimistic.
You're optimistic, and one cause for optimism is, of course, looking at the battlefield right now. The Ukrainian military is making headway, seems to be moving from success to success on the battlefield. And in that process, of course, you will be capturing Russian soldiers, colonels, generals. But you know, at the end of the day, a lot of Russian soldiers whom you will be capturing will say, well, I was merely following orders. This is what they will say. They say, this is the order I followed. This is, of course, an argument we've heard many times when Nazis were captured after World War II. I was following orders. How do you intend to proceed here?
This is actually, first of all, this is a difference between specific cases. For instance, the case of bombing of the multi-storied residential buildings in Borodyanka, and actually Mariupol Drama Theater, Mariupol Maternity House, they were bombed. So the pilot of this aircraft intentionally, he understood at that time what is the target. And it's not about the order, it's about the violation of the rules of war, of international humanitarian law. If we are talking about the battlefield, of course, we treat Russians prisoners of war in Ukraine on basis of the international humanitarian law. So we divide those who committed war crimes against civil population, against civil infrastructure, from those who are just combatants. So this is, the best example. See how Ukraine differs from Russia, because Ukraine respects rule of law, and Ukrainian people want justice based on the rule of law, while Russian Federation are really, destroying all basics of law and international order.
We're almost out of time, but before we let you go, how can the international community, we're in Warsaw here today, you're speaking in other countries, obviously, making your case. How can other countries, how can the international community aid your country in your efforts to investigate and prosecute cases of war crimes committed by Russia?
We have a wide range of support, and we are very grateful for all of the initiatives. I will just name all of them, just not to lose. We have, along with 5 European states, we have established joint investigation team, uniting our investigatory efforts against international crimes. Similarly, 14 European states have initiated domestic investigation for crimes committed by the Russian Federation in Ukraine. First time in history, 43 states unanimously referred the situation in Ukraine for the investigation of the Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court. And as I mentioned, we have established excellent cooperation with Prosecutor Han. In parallel, my office receives strategic advice from Atrocities Crimes Advisory Group created by European Union, United States, and United Kingdom. We have also adopted just recently the strategy on conflict-related sexual violence crimes and closely collaborating with UN Special Representative on Sexual Violence in Conflict, Ms. Pramila Patan. They will open office in Ukraine shortly. We have now a team of French police and experts, forensic experts, which returned back to Ukraine after mass atrocities in Izium, and they now work in Kharkiv. And I will mention, this is important, the last case we delivered to them, it's very tragic case. We have found 6 cars where 24 civilians were killed near Kupiansk. 13 children, 1 pregnant woman, all of them killed in their cars. They tried to escape. All their bodies, so with the help of our special forces, were transferred now to Kharkiv expert facilities. And French experts, forensic experts, are the first to make examination, because we all need to find what was the cause of death of all of these people. So we are absolutely open and we are absolutely transparent, and this raised trust in what we found in Ukraine and what was committed. These are just small examples of our cooperation.
60 seconds left. Andriy Kostin, you were appointed as Prosecutor General by President Zelensky in July. You know what you were getting into. This is a very, very tough job, emotionally, psychologically. Has it been tougher than you expected, than you imagined?
You know, I have tough job starting from 24th of February, because I was not only doing my job as a chair of parliamentary committee, I was involved in many negotiation processes, and in many actually projects started for compensation mechanism, the tribunal and others. So for me, it's just another front line of our fight, now fighting for justice, for Ukrainian people and for the whole civilized world. Thank you.
And we wish you the best of luck with that. Obviously, Ukrainian Prosecutor General Andriy Kostin, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.